No, well, gee, you little lush.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What do you mean lush? There's no booze in it.
Oh, that's right. It's virgin. Okay, we are live. There's 5, it says. I don't see anybody yet. Say hello, whoever is
Hello,
out there.
Let me get my glasses just in case I need them.
Is the light up the full thing?
Huh?
Is the light up on full or?
It might be white.
Well, it should be, but it seems
It's
to.
like there's a little bit of a fog in front of it.
What? No, I think we're okay. There. Well, that's just the light coming down. I don't know. Laura's here. Hi, Laura. We'll give a few other people some time here to get connected. Dana's here. Hi, Dana. Ooh, I lost my pita. Hi, Nancy. So people are coming in. And we'll just wait another couple of seconds
Hello.
here. Today we're drinking Caesars, but they're virgin. Oh, Anita's here. Hi, Anita. You made it today, Anita.
I'm only
Which is
drinking virgin ones because they don't really taste any different if you add alcohol.
No, they don't. Can't really taste the vodka, at least I can't. So, they're virgin.
There's lots of Tabasco in them though.
Yeah, you're getting kind of heavy-handed on the Tabasco on things. The chicken wings last night.
There was no Tabasco in there. There's hot sauce.
What is?
Chicken wings.
Oh. Oh, that was, what you put in the Frank's. Oh, Anita's going for a walk later today. Looks like it's going to rain here.
Yeah, actually, it's supposed to rain at some point, but we haven't gotten too much yet.
No. Well, anyways, we can get started here. If we want to know what our snacks are today, we've got hummus, tzatziki, baba ganoush, some cheese,
Right now,
and
it's
pita.
just sort of cloud cover.
Okay, so, well, let's get started. So our usual beginning here about my mother. Okay, this week was interesting about my mother. I mentioned last week that yesterday, Saturday, was my mother's 80th birthday. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I booked, because that's what you have to do when you visit them in the home now, I booked for my sister and I to see her, outside visit, masks, 6 feet away, no touching, no nothing. Actually, in my family, that's not a bad thing, no touching, because we don't touch in my family. We're not a demonstrative family. In fact, the only one in my family that might be somewhat demonstrative is my sister, and even she's not that demonstrative. So, no danger there, no hugging, no kissing, no that kind of thing. If we were bringing anything for her, that, first of all, could not be a food item. My sister got her some new tops, and we'd have to give that to a staff member, and they would take those and hang on to them for 48 hours. Sorry. Tomato juice is creeping up on me. And then give those to her. Okay, everything fine and dandy. Now, as long as the weather held out, if it wasn't bad weather, this would go through. The 2 days before, they had an outbreak. One person tested positive for COVID. Well, they shut everything down again, rightly so. I'm certainly not complaining about that. They have to take those precautions, and as you know, that this particular nursing home my mother's in have been very, very proactive about everything, And, that's why they've not had anybody die from COVID in there. And the cases, they've only had one other case, and it was a false positive since this whole thing started. So they shut everything down, visitations are all canceled, and they were testing everybody on Friday, all the staff, all the residents, everybody was having a COVID test. Now they've had come back, 85% of the staff results have come back already. All of them came back negative. 86% of the residents' results came back, all negative. The rest will come probably tomorrow on Monday. In the meantime, they've tested again the person who they tested before that came out positive. It's a possibility it's a false positive. We don't know yet. However, trying to figure this one out. With the stringent regulations they have had, they only allow, the people that they allow to go physically inside the building are, of course, the staff, and they have some that are called essential workers. And these are people who I think are volunteers or may have a family member in there that they help feed. Like these are people who are, can't feed themselves. And they let them in. But they had to have a COVID test and show that they were negative before they were allowing them in for that. And I don't think there's very many of those type of people at all. So they've done everything. So how did this one get by? We have a theory. Well, we'll find out how close our theory might be. We're never going to find out exactly, because although they're being very transparent, and they have been since the beginning of this, they have not said where they think this may have come from at all. But that may be because they're waiting until they get all the tests done and everything. We think somebody came and visited. The person who got it is 90 years old. They immediately isolated that person in the building. Our theory is a family relative came to visit, made the arrangements and everything like that, but touched them. They were asymptomatic, and they probably gave Granny a big hug or something like that. Now, I know that the nursing home, there is a suggestion that they've had some people who have not been happy with the regulations on this, who have given the staff a really hard time there, which I think is completely ludicrous that they do that, and those people need to be put up against a wall and slapped silly many times over. And I volunteer to slap them. I'll wear gloves. I'll slap them with a 10-foot pole, whatever, because that's just stupid, okay? So that's our theory. However, we don't know, and we probably won't know for sure. But if all the tests for the staff come back negative, if all the other residents are negative, and they keep the residents separate too. They changed their whole dining routine. They have separate areas throughout the home to eat now. They used to have just one great big huge hall where there'd be about 200 of them in there. But my mother says that now she has sort of her own table. She's distanced away from everybody, and their eating facilities are in their basement kind of a thing. It's an older style nursing home. And so my mother's been eating on her own floor throughout all of this as well. So that would say that somebody from outside who'd made arrangements to visit their loved one did not follow the bloody rules, which they probably snuck it in when their backs were turned, because they have somebody out there watching while you're visiting and the whole bit. So I don't know. My mother is fine though, and that's good. Just unfortunate we could not go over for her birthday. Although I talked to her on the phone, and so did my sister. My mother didn't seem to be that concerned about it. She kind of went, "Oh, is it my birthday?" Well, I said, "Yes, Mom, it's your birthday. And it's a milestone. You're 80, kind of a thing." So, now here's the bad side of it, or what you'll think it is. Was I really disappointed that I couldn't go over and see my mother? No, I wasn't. This was not the way I wanted it to happen, but I had a feeling the whole week before, I had a feeling this wasn't going to happen. I don't know why I had that feeling. I figured the weather would be bad and that would be the end of that or whatever. Or we'd get over there and my mother would, tell us, well, your mother's not feeling well, she's in bed. Because my mother, as I've told you before, does have a tendency to do that little trick every now and then. And you know, last year's birthday was a disaster with her. So thought we could somehow make that up as limited as it was going to be, but you know, but nope. So we'll wait and see now. They're keeping us posted almost daily as to what's happening. They have an automated telephone system that they put a message in and it calls your number and you get a recorded message telling you exactly what's happening. But it will be at least 2 weeks, I would say, before they'll start before we'll have the ability to book a time to go and see her. And I think it'll be even longer than that. It's all going to depend on what they find out from this and how the person that has it is doing. Now they say that the person that has it there is doing very well. So that's good. But there you are, you know, kind of a thing. Meanwhile, I got a call last week, earlier in the week. My mother's on the list for a private room. She's in a semi-private right now. I have her on a list for a private room. I have since the first day she went into the place. But this place only has about 9 private rooms. So, you know, the only way you're going to get a private room is, you know, when somebody basically, you know, kind of goes. When you know that there's a room comes available, you know someone's dead. Sad reality, okay, of the whole thing. They called me beginning of this past week and said a private room has come up. And I said, oh, okay, that's good. I said, oh, but they said there's one little problem with it. And I went, well, what's that? Well, it doesn't have a washroom in the room. Well, my mother actually doesn't use the washroom. They usually put her on a bedpan and she wears a diaper. Now, you would say, is that because she has a problem? Not really. Her problem is mental. That's effort. It's so much easier to have somebody else wipe your bum, you know, really, for you, than go. But whatever. But I was thinking, even though she's in that situation, then it would be easier on the help. If they needed to use the washroom facilities, if it's right there in the room, than having to, you know, drag her down the hall to another one or whatever. And so I wasn't too thrilled with that idea. Also, I was a little bit hesitant because my mother used to be a social person to a point when she was younger, but since she's been in the home, she's not all that social. She doesn't really partake in most of the activities that are there. She just sits all day and basically in her room and watches her TV. I don't know how much interaction she has with her roommate. Her roommate is a really nice lady. My mother lately has been complaining about her, but that's not unusual. My mother does that all the time. But I thought, if she gets into a private room, then she becomes isolated even more so, and that's not really good either. So I turned it down. They have to go through me because I'm power of attorney first. And I said, don't bring it up to my mother about it. And I wasn't really going to say anything to my mother about that either. But I said, but leave her on the list. And they said, okay, that was fine. Well, Friday, I get another call. A private room has come up. They're dropping like flies in there. And this one has a washroom in it. And I asked about the size, and they said, well, they weren't very clear on the size of it. My mother doesn't need a huge room, and I know they're not huge there. But I'm thinking what she's in right now is there is very little room between the wall and her bed to get her wheelchair down. Now, not that my mother usually wheels herself around,
not
because
that she puts any effort for
no,
her to do it.
because that's effort.
She's already said, oh, there's something wrong with my wheelchair. It doesn't move as well as everybody else's. Well, that's because she doesn't try to move it.
Well, see, Mother, yours is not electric. In fact, they don't really have too many electric ones in there. They don't want them to have them in there. And she doesn't really do it. You know, you gotta wheel it, Mother. But anyways, but I thought, well, it would be nice if the room is a little bigger than that, and I figured it would be. And they said, yeah, it was. They said the lady that had been in there before, she had a chest of drawers, and she had a big lazy boy in there, and that, and I thought, okay, this is fine. And then she said, there's a lady across the hall in another private room from this room that your mother seems to know. Mary. They're always Mary. And I saw, and she says she does talk to her on occasion. And I said, well, okay, that's good. That's social. So, and they said there is a fair amount of traffic goes past that room. So, you know, people pop their head in or whatever. So I thought, okay. Well, I said, as far as I'm concerned, it sounds good. Will you show it to my mother first? Because basically she's got to live there, so it's her decision. And she said, oh yes, we'll take her right up and show her everything. And I said, okay, if she says she's happy with that, then go for it. Move her in. Now, I was a little concerned about her television and her telephone system, because usually you have to have Bell, that's our provider for both of those things, come in and do the hookup. And of course, right now, I don't know how they're handling that kind of thing. And I can't go in, they won't let me go in and do anything, you know, as far as setup there. And so I said that to them. And she said, not to worry. She says, we'll look after it. She says, actually, the room already has like a telephone line in there and a television thing and everything. They can do it remotely. I'll believe it when I see it. I know they can do it that way. It's a question of, will it get done that way? I don't know. Now, they're really good there about all this stuff. So, but you know,
I'm sure they'll get it sorted out, or they'll get their technician guy to sort it.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll look after it all. But you know, like kind of.
You know, I was thinking your mom's in the was going to be in being in a private room. It's like her old apartment, because basically when she was in her apartment, she didn't talk to anybody, and she sat in her apartment all day long and watched TV.
So yeah, I guess
here she'll get still more interaction, because they still take her for lunches and dinners and stuff.
Yeah,
and
true.
they still have people walk by and she'll talk to her.
Yeah.
So.
Well, at least she won't have a roommate she can bitch about in it. So I called.
Except for herself.
Yeah. So I called my mother. Actually, they called me again about a half an hour later and said, yeah, we took your mother over to the room, showed her, and she likes it. Now, this lady that's looking after this, she was going on holidays starting that night, but she has another person that was coming in on Monday who would take over from her for all the arrangements with this. And she said, so your mother can have the weekend to make up her mind about it. And I said, okay, that's great. So I called my mother. And I tried to call her. She picked up the phone. I don't know what she did. She said nothing on the other end of it. And I'm yelling in the phone, hello? 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 Like this. And I can hear my mother talking to somebody, and I can hear her TV set, but she's not paying attention to it. And then I knew what was going to happen. As soon as I hung up and tried to call back, the phone would be busy because it's off the hook. So I hung up, I called back, the phone was busy because it's off the hook. So I wanted to talk to her about this whole thing about the room. So I called up the desk on her floor, asked the nurse there, I said, okay, blah, 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 here's the problem with my mother's phone. Couldn't you go in and check it and put it on the hook, and I will call and let her know I'm going to call her within the next 5 minutes? And she said yes, she would. So I did, and I got a hold of her, and of course, the first thing she always says when I call her is, I can't hear you, put it to your ear. In fact, the phone that she has, Walter just bought a new phone. It's exactly the same phone as my mother's, and he got it on purpose, so if we have to tell her remotely what buttons to push, we can. Because, you know, all phones are a little bit different, but now we can actually physically see what she sees and, you know, tell her what to do. Not that she'll do it, but...
Or not that she'll find the button.
No. So anyways, then she finally was able to hear me. So I talked to her about the new room and everything. She said, oh yeah, she saw it, she liked it. And I said, okay, well, on Monday they're going to ask you for your decision on that. So you just tell them, yep. Fine, and they're going to look after you, Mom, move you all in and all your stuff. Now, I said your room is going to seem a little sparse, maybe, given, you know, that it's a bigger room and you don't have that much stuff over there. But when this COVID thing is over, at least, or when we can come and physically visit you inside, Lori and I, that's my sister, we'll take a look and we'll decide what more you need in there. And whatever else you'll need, you know, we'll bring it in and dress up the room a little bit and, you know, make it all comfy cozy for you and that. But you'll have to just wait a while for that. Well, that's fine. That's no problem. Well, what else can you say, Mother? It's the best we can do.
Well, they'll still have a wardrobe in there
Oh, yeah.
and stuff like that. So.
And it's not like all she is she's either in bed or in her wheelchair. So, you know.
Well, see, you know, even if she had a private room, then you could, when you can get in there, you can get her a proper TV stand or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was thinking of that until we see the room. But anyway, so that's the situation with all of that. The only thing I'm a little concerned about is the connection of her TV and the phone. Because her TV is her source of entertainment, and the phone, such as it is with her, is my way right now of talking to her. So we'll see how that all works out. It's also more expensive. It's about $300 more a month. I'm not that concerned about that because my mother's not rich, but when she sold her house and that, and the money she gets from the government and from my father's pension plan, she's okay. So that's fine. And it has a private bathroom, as I said, so that's good. I mean, that's the other thing. That's just the cheapness in me, but you pay the same price for a private room there with or without a bathroom. So in my way of thinking, I want all the bang for my buck I can get. So I want a bloody private washroom in there. Even
Well, not that if we come visit and you have to go to the bathroom.
then we can use it, yeah. So, whatever. So anyways, that was the interesting things about my mother this week. So what's going on here? Oh, Andy's here. Hi, Andy. Anita says we're getting cases in nursing homes here too. One close to us has 40 positive, no deaths so far.
Yeah, we had a few a while ago that when COVID was here in Canada was more intense, and there was a nursing home in a community not far from us that had 80 deaths in it.
Yeah. Actually, at one point, half the deaths in Ontario from COVID in our province were people who were in long-term care residences. And it's really shook up our government now on the problems we have with our long-term care residents because we have problems here with them and the system. Now, maybe if anything good comes out of this COVID, maybe it'll be that they will have modernized and structured the long-term care a little bit better. Maybe. I don't hold out a lot of faith in that, but you know. Oh, Teresa's here. Hi, Teresa. And Anne. Hi, Anne. And Roberta. Hi, Roberta. Yeah, so anyways, that's my mother. So, what's next? What's Walter working on?
I'm still working on my shorts.
Yeah, but you've got more of them done now.
Yeah, they're actually looking like shorts.
Well, why don't you show them your shorts?
I just have to do the top and the belt loops and I have to hem them.
Well, bring them out and show the people your shorts. They're looking quite nice. Quite good with it. He's had a few cursing moments, but for the most part, they're coming along quite nicely. He's been making masks again too on his embroidery machine. He's the mask king. If anybody needs masks, well, don't ask us.
You can't see very well because I chose a dark color, so I've got the pockets and the belt loops and stuff right on, and I got the fly in, the fly is in.
Is that a flexible waistband that you can grow into?
No, but it does have, the fabric has some stretch to it, and I've got back pockets.
They're cargo shorts.
Yeah.
Yeah, they look pretty good. Laura says they look great. Hi, Marilyn. And my mother, she just turned yesterday 80. Andy says, good job. So, anyways, that's what Walter's been working on. His pants and his mask. Is this your last class this week, or?
Yeah, it's the last class this week. So all we have to do is finish the waist and the belt loops, and then hem them, and then there's a few buttons I have to put on.
Everybody's praising your shorts. And it says her dad is 94. Yeah, my mother was very young when she had me. Very young. 16. So, yeah. Okay, what other new things? My Genome 15,000 has been working fine. Okay, you know that I've got the stores machine, and now that machine is my machine, and it's been going, I've been doing a lot of stuff on it, embroidery and that, and it's been working really well, so I'm very happy with that. And the other thing I'm happy with in my machine breakdown stuff is my Cricut. If you remember, I told you that I have a Cricut maker, has the rotary cutter blade, and lately when I've tried to cut fabric, it just grinds, it just digs right into the mat, and I've tried everything. So a couple of weeks ago, I sent a message off to Cricut, and they sent me back a message saying, you know, it's an automated message, but due to the COVID crisis, you know, where it's going to take us longer to get to you, so don't expect a contact for 1 to 2 weeks. And it was 2 weeks. Earlier this week, I got Melissa sent me a message, and she essentially told me to do a hard reboot of the machine, which I knew about and did try, and it didn't make any difference, but I thought I'll give it a try again. But there was one instruction that I don't know in the original instructions, so I tried this, and I missed this or not, but you're supposed to turn the machine on, then unplug it, and then do these other things, which I had done before. The only difference between this time and the last time I did a hard reset was I did not unplug it when I tried it. I didn't figure this was going to work. Guess what? It worked. It cuts the way it's supposed to cut. So, probably could have saved myself $27 buying a new blade, but if I don't. But anyways, it does work, and so I'm happy with that. I mean, I don't cut fabric that often with it, but the fact is that I have a machine that can do that. I want it to be able to do that. So yeah, so that was okay. Dana says, well done, Walter. Next week you can model them.
Yeah, actually they fit.
Hi, Cindy.
Provided I don't put a pile of weight on this week. So.
COVID, yeah. Yeah, I'm very happy that it's resolved too, Nancy, with it. You know, one thing I'll say about Cricut, anytime I've had to deal with their customer service has been pretty good. It was better when there wasn't this whole COVID thing, because you could go online and chat with them, and someone would come on immediately and would stick with you and not pay you just lip service, would help you out. So, you know, I have to give them credit for that. So anyways, it works, so I'm happy.
Yeah, well, unplugging probably basically reset whatever was in its memory.
Yeah, well, it wasn't just a question of unplugging it. I mean, you turned it on, unplugged it, then you held down the power button and the button that pulls the mat into the machine, and you held those down at the same time and plugged it back in. Then the power button flashes red. Then you go into the design software and you download and install the latest firmware version, which I already had done that, but I did it again. And then once it's all installed and everything, presto bingo, it's supposed to work, and it did. So, who would have thought that pulling the plug out, like, would have made a difference? But apparently it does.
Must have been something that it reset or something.
Must. I don't know. So, anyways, it's
one of
fine.
Those fancy tricks.
Yeah. Well,
it's like Apple. If you want to reset your phone, you do there's a couple of buttons you have to push.
Yeah. But anyways, it works. So if anybody has a problem with their Cricut, if you have a Cricut maker, I'm not sure if the same thing would work on one of the other models. That's what you have to do. If you can't remember, just send me an email. I'll send you the instructions for it. Okay, what else is new? I got new tires on my car this week. Who would have known? Well, I didn't know. Tires rot, even when you don't use them. And my car doesn't get used that much. And my tires aren't all that old, don't have that many miles on them, but they were rotted, basically. So I had to buy new tires. So
Well, the other thing is he doesn't use his car that much. So actually, we need to start driving that car a little bit more, because your car shouldn't stand in the same spot for periods of time.
Yeah, I guess.
It needs to move once in a while.
yeah, well. Oh, Bonbon is here. Hi, Bonbon. Yeah, Nancy says, hey, Steve's tires rot. Yep, they do. Who knew? I didn't know.
They'll get damaged over a period of time if you don't regularly drive your car. And as they say, after 5 years, you should start checking your tires for cracks and stuff. So what we're losing air. 3 of his tires were losing air all the time. And you did get that fixed one time.
Yeah, I do.
But they were still having a problem with them. And basically they get sort of like, because you don't use them, and they sit in one spot for a long period of time, then they begin to get out of shape. So.
Yeah, apparently.
So we need to drive that car a lot more often.
Ann says, does everyone here have an embroidery machine? I'm thinking about buying one for about around $7,000, trying to decide if it's worth it.
Wow, that's an expensive embroidery machine.
Yeah, that is.
Are you planning to get one that uses several colors at once? Or the one I have is just looks like a regular sewing machine, and it only takes one color at a time.
So what's the make of the one you're looking at? Is it Janome, a Bernina? Brother, Fath of Husqvarna. Bonbon says, hi guys, have you ever researched multi-needle machines? I have my single needle, but thinking about moving into a multi-needle. Any advice or opinion on one company over another? Well,
I don't really know that much. I have looked at the Janome ones. Janome only has a 4 needle and a 7 needle. You might look into what size hoops you can put into them, because I did know that the she's a brother Stellar. I did know that a lot of the single needle sewing machine types, you do have large hoops that you can use, whereas the multi-needle Janomes, their hoops aren't that big.
No.
Like, I mean, their biggest hoop is not a huge hoop compared to the ones that single needles are. Now, I don't know about other manufacturers, what size hoops they have, but that's something you should look at as well if you're going to be able to. See, a lot of these multi-needle machines are used for industrial purposes, and a lot of them, what they do is they string them together on production lines, and like it's for manufacturers that do embroidery on caps or T-shirts or something like that. And then they're a single purpose. So what they'll do is they'll have them loaded with the same threads all day long, and then just keep redoing the same pattern over and over again. So whereas if you're just a domestic user, and they gear the single use type machines for a domestic user.
I don't know what, in terms of reliability, I don't know anything about them. I know that there's a company in the United States, it's called John Deere, not to be confused with the one that makes garden tractors and farm equipment, but it's called John Deere, and they are into industrial strength embroidery machines, multi-needle ones, and I don't know what the name of the brand is, but they come from Germany, and apparently they're supposed to be really, really good machines. In this John Deere, they've used these machines when they just started putting them out into the domestic market, but this company has used them for years as industrial machines by the same company, and they're supposed to be very, very good. I don't know what the price is on them. I have a feeling they're probably pricey.
Yeah, the multi-needle machines can be extremely expensive.
Mm-hmm. Now, Anne, you said it's a brother Stellar.
It's the one below the Lumiere.
Yes, below the Lumiere. $7,000 for that kind of machine, because does it only embroider?
No, it doesn't. It's a
combination. Okay, so Walter said that's a high price, but he has a 550E, which manufacturer suggested price is what, 4,000? You didn't pay 4,000,
but I paid 2,300 for it.
Yeah,
but For the Stellaire, I think that's a fair price from what I can tell.
Yeah.
I don't know, I haven't looked at Brother machines at all, but I know it's not their top of the line embroidery sewing machine. It's the one below it. I think the Lumiere or Luminaire or whatever is their top of the line machine.
But I think this particular machine has the laser guide on it. So does the Luminaire. But I've heard them advertising that's on the Stellaire as well, which looks kind of interesting for positioning stuff, because positioning sometimes on certain things or what you're doing can be very, very tricky, and it looks like that's not a bad system. We don't have a Brother dealer really around by us, and Brother machines, at least in our province, are not that readily available, and getting them serviced is not so good either. So that's why we haven't done anything with Brother.
The Brother Stellaire has a very large throat as well for use. I know that, and I know Brother is usually a real big leader in large hoops. I think they even have larger hoops than Janome has.
Do they?
Yeah.
I know that Brother's a very, very popular brand in the States. There's more accessibility to them in the States than there is here in Canada, which is kind of ironic because they have a head office in Quebec. But
I have a Janome 550E embroidery machine, and all it does is embroidery. It doesn't do sewing at all, so you'd still need a separate sewing machine. And my largest hoop is 7.9 by 15, actually 15, 7.9 by 15 and inches, which is a pretty good size hoop. But I believe the brothers are larger than that, so for the largest hoop.
Yeah, so that's about all we know about.
Yeah, I can't tell you a lot about Brother.
Janome, we can tell you lots of things about, but Brother
in Canada, there are not a lot of Brother dealerships.
No,
so, and we've been told that they can be difficult to repair. So in Canada, and not in the U.S. They said it in the U.S. are very popular in the U.S. and there's lots of support in the U.S.
Yeah. So, sorry to hear about your mother, Teresa. Teresa says, I have a new understanding for the COVID restrictions now. My 84-year-old mom can run circles around me, is suddenly ill, putting her in CCU, where after a week I'll be able to visit once a week. Yeah. And Anne says she wants to be able to quilt with it. Well, basically, the bigger the throat, the easier that is. But on any domestic machine, when it comes to quilting, depending on the size of the quilt you're making,
she says she has a Janome machine that she can quilt with.
Oh yeah, which Janome do you have? Yeah, the 15,000 has a. I'm behind here. Let's see. Yes, there. The Janome 15,000 has a large hoop for quilting. I find it tedious though to rehoop every 12 inches or so. I usually free motion quilt, so I'm slow to speed. The 15,000 has a large throat. Yeah, the 15,000 has a 11.5 inch throat. Janome does have another machine, but it's not a quilt, or it's not an embroidery machine that has a bigger throat than that, and that's the M7. And but you're right, Teresa, about the hoop business. I have done a whole quilt using supposedly the quilting hoop, and I haven't gone back to it because I had all kinds of problems with my 15,000, as you know, and I just don't want to take a chance because I don't know if that contributed to the problem I was having or not. I was very careful, but there was one time when it got caught a little bit. And trying to line it up each time is not the easiest in the world. I actually have a video about how to do it though, in my Idiot Quilter section. So if you're interested, you can see what I did with that.
Yeah, I'm just reading on here that the Brother Stellaire has a 9.5 by 14 inch hoop is their largest hoop, which is actually very big.
Yeah, well that's the size of my largest hoop.
Is it 14? Or is it 11?
Oh no, it's 11.5. That's right, that's actually bigger than, it's 9 by 11.5, my largest one.
Yeah, it's a sewing, quilting, and embroidery machine, the Brother Stellaire.
You know, the only thing is that I've noticed this with these, with the high-end embroidery machines that are also sewing machines. They're trying to push them like they're a replacement for a long arm, and they're not. They're not. So if you're going to do a queen size quilt, and I have, you have to take into consideration that you're going to need to have space where you can spread your quilt out to distribute the weight. I was using bungee cords, which work, but my latest way of doing it, and I've got a video about that, is I have a series of collapsible tables that I can put all together, and I can handle a queen size quilt laid out on that with my sewing machine at one end, and that does make things a little easier. But also it depends on how much experience you have. I don't have a lot of experience with free motion quilting. So for me, it's awkward. I mean, if you have a lot of experience with free motion quilting, you probably will find it easier, but the larger the throat.
It has, the Stellar has an 11-inch throat, which is the same as your...
Which is the same as my 15,000. Which is pretty good. Bigger's better though. It really is. Let's see, just I'm behind here in people's comments. I think the biggest question to consider is price, reference price is how much are you going to use it, and secondly, can you afford a $7,000 toy? Yeah, that's a consideration, but you want to know something? I use mine all the time for everything, as you know, and mine cost me $7,500. It retails at $14,000. But you never pay retail on these things, whereas manufacturers suggested retail price because your dealers usually give you a much better deal. In fact, if your dealer won't give you anything but the manufacturer's retail price, I would go somewhere else because they have a fair amount of wiggle room on these machines,
especially on the high-end machines.
Yeah. Ann says, I have a Janome sewing machine and love it, so you can quilt with it. Okay, Ann, are you talking about the 15,000 or are you talking about any Janome machine? Or what's your Janome machine? What model do you have? In theory, you can quilt on any sewing machine. But it depends on how big the quilt is. I mean, if you're doing table runners, if you're doing lap size quilts, if you're doing a throw, okay, you can quilt on pretty much any size of machine with them. The problem is getting the bulk of your quilt underneath that throat, and there are ways that help with that. Like you roll your quilt up on the one end so it's, but again, that roll gets pretty big as you go along. You start in the middle, you work to one side, flip it around, work the other side. So you only have half the quilt under your throat at any given time. But again, if you got a queen size or got a king size, an 8-inch throat is going to choke. It's simple as that. I was trying not to say that phrase because he kicks me every time I say it's simple as that. But technically, you can quilt on anything. It's just, how much are you willing and how strong are you? It's hard on your body, quilting. You wouldn't think so. I never thought that until I started to get into quilting. But your body aches when you've been sitting there. You've got to take a lot of rest. You got to stretch a lot. And of course, there's proper positioning. Your arms are supposed to be at 90-degree angles to the top of your sewing machine, to the table of your sewing machine, and you're supposed to keep your shoulders down because, like, when I start to quilt, I get tense and my shoulders go up, and then you can't get out of this position if you've been doing that for an hour. So yeah, so a larger throat makes life a little easier. A long arm would make it a lot easier, but they're pricey. Ann has an MX 8200, or no, an MC 8200. I'm not familiar with the 8200, so I can't really say. But yeah, you can probably quilt on it. Dana says there's a brother dealer here in Regina and 2 in Calgary. I don't have any problem with getting parts or service for brother. Didn't realize how lucky I am. Yeah, in Ontario, it's a lot more difficult.
I can only think of really one brother dealership that I know of so far.
That one in Hamilton?
No, the one in Millbrook. And then there's one in Hamilton.
Oh yeah, that one.
But according to our Genome dealership, they said they'll fix anything in her store. She sells Genome. But her, the guy that repairs the machines says he has a lot of problem trying to get some parts from brother.
Now this is something, because we were talking about this earlier today. Ann asked, do you have magnetic hoops? And Dana says, I have a magnetic hoop by Extra Magnets. Now, when we talk about magnetic hoops, are you talking about, like on my Genome, my quilting hoop is a magnetic hoop in the sense that it has clips that hook by magnets to keep your quilt in the hoop better, because you can't really, hoop like you normally would with fabric because your quilt's too thick. Is that what you're talking about? Because there's another type of magnetic hoop that's done by a company called Designs in Machine Embroidery, or Dimes for short. And they sell these ones that are complete magnets, very heavy duty, and instead of clamping your fabric or your quilts into them, you just lay it on top and put those down in little suckers. Apparently, they show how strong they are, just it right down. But they're an accessory that you have to buy separate from a machine, and they're very, very pricey depending on the size that you get. And they don't have all sizes for all machines either. Like they don't have a magnetic hoop for my 15,000, for example, but they do have one for Walter's 550E.
But they're quite pricey.
They're
like if I want one that's their biggest hoop in that brand for my machine is a 7 by it's an 8 by 12, and that hoop will cost me well over $300 Canadian for that hoop.
Yeah. Now, Bonbon says there's a method called edge to edge. You can see it on YouTube and order the instruction book and CD with quilting designs. I haven't tried yet, but no. Okay, I bought it. I have tried it, and it works. She makes it though on the YouTube videos look really, really easy. It's not. It's fiddly, put it that way. It does work though, but it's a little tedious in how it works. Again, it's like, all right, what we're trying to do is we're trying to make our sewing machines, our domestic sewing machines, take the place of a long arm. They can't. A long arm is totally different technology than what we have in our domestic machines. But I did try it, and it did work, not too badly. It's just I got a little impatient with it because, as I said, it's a bit tedious to line things up on your quilt. The other problem I have with doing a large quilt and trying to do something like an edge-to-edge design is, or full free motion quilting, is you really need to mark your quilt so you have something to follow. Unless you're an experienced long armer who, you can just sit down there and do feathers everywhere and that kind of thing, you need to mark your quilt. And I'm afraid to mark my quilts because you never know. All these different marking pins, they don't all come out of fabric the way they say they will. And even though you may be using 100% quilting cotton, some of those, the marking pen, like the friction pens or the air disappear pens or something they call them, or the water soluble ones, they don't necessarily come out of your fabric completely even after you've washed it. So I'm really leery. You have to test them for one thing, but as I said, you got to test them on all the fabric that you've used in a quilt, not just one piece, because even though the fabrics are all 100% cotton, they will all react differently. So that's why I stay away from that, because you can get stencils, and I have some. I've never really used them. Now, you can use chalk, but even chalk you have to be careful with. And chalk, the problem with it is you get your whole quilt marked, and then you're quilting away, and the chalk, because it's dust, goes away. By the time you get to another end of your quilt, the chalk marks are gone. So you've got to like either do a little section at a time, and yeah.
So that's a picture of the 8200.
Oh, okay. What's it say its throat is?
It doesn't say how big the throat is. It's not 11 inches, I don't think.
No. So yeah, Bonbon. It does work. You can make it work, but just you have to be really, really, really patient with it. And I'm sorry, I'm not that patient. I like the quick fix.
Says the workspace is 11 inches, but I don't know if it is or not.
So Bonnie, the laser guide. I know what laser guides are, but are you saying there's a laser guide on the 8200, or do you have a laser guide on your sewing machine?
Bonnie doesn't have a Janome. She has a Bonnie.
Yeah.
Bonnie's the one in Nova Scotia. Or
yeah, I know.
She has Husqvarna's.
Oh, that's right, Husqvarna's. So the Husqvarna's, they come with a laser guide. You can buy a laser guide separate. Same company, Dimes. They have these laser projectors that supposedly will help you line up your quilt, but they're not attached to the sewing machine. You have to. I'm not really sure exactly. They have two models. I think one is version 2 of the first one they came out with. They're basically a light stand with a special light bulb in it that does the crosshairs. And from what I've seen, is you can mount them on your sewing table or whatever, put your hoop down, and you can line everything up. I've watched some of their videos. I still don't really get how they work. And they're not cheap either.
I'm going to correct you. You'll be mad at me.
Why? What are you correcting me with?
It's not called Dimes. It's called Dime. There's no S at the end.
I stand corrected. I just like to have a lot more than one dime. That's all. Dimes. It's called Dime. Designs in Machine Embroidery. Embroideries. No. Whatever. Okay, thank you for that information. Let's see. Let's backing up here.
Yeah, Ann says it's 11-inch throat, so it's the same size throat as a 15,000.
Yeah. You said, but
so yeah, you can embroider with that.
Yeah, Bonnie, you're right. She says, I love the machines I have, but still think your dealer is the most important thing to consider when purchasing. Yeah, because you've heard my stories about my 15,000. If it hadn't been for Shirley, I would probably be screwed, royally screwed.
Like, I mean,
Ann says I was talking about Dime.
Okay, Bonnie says she has 3 magnetic hoops and she likes them.
Yeah, they just don't have. They don't have them for.
I thought about buying one, but the price of that sort of put me off.
Yeah, well, actually, I would have paid the price if they had one for the 15,000 because they do look really good. But they haven't manufactured one yet for that machine. Dana says, I don't trust marking pens either. Yeah, that's my problem as well with it. Well, anyways, it'd be nice to have a long arm. That's for sure. Although, I have been sort of in the back of my mind toying with the idea of, Janome has a frame that you put, but that one you have to put a sewing machine on, don't you?
No, you got to put you get the 16-inch throat artistic one.
Oh, okay, that one. And I know, how much is it?
7,000 or 8,000.
Oh, is it?
But for that price, you might as well might as well buy their long arm that has an 18-inch throat thing, and it's 12,000 or something. And but actually, Janome doesn't actually make their own long arms. It's made by Handy Quilter.
Well, someday, maybe. I'm experimenting with other quilting techniques on my domestic machine. and see how they work out. I am the master of walking foot quilting, I can tell you that. Well, if it's a wavy line. But I gotta try some more ruler foot quilting. I have all these rulers, what's her name? Angela Walters rulers. I bought those all about a year and a half ago and have hardly ever used them. So practice makes perfect. Dana says, I have one of those lights but I rarely use it. Guess I'd better Google how to use it. They're just magnetic dots that fit on top of the hoop. They're expensive but worth every cent. Okay. And Dana says, Bonnie, I have a Husqvarna Diamond, and that's the machine I have the magnetic hoop for. Okay, so anyways, yeah, there's a lot of stuff you need to research about these embroidery machines, but guess what? I would say the way to buy an embroidery machine is not the way I bought an embroidery machine. I like the toys, okay? So, think about how much you're going to use it and what you want to use it for. Because if you spend all this money, like Bonbon I think said, and you don't use it, you've wasted all that money. So you got to be prepared to use it, and you've got to be prepared to shell out money for supplies. It's not a one-time thing. Embroidery threads are expensive, stabilizers are expensive. It can get quite pricey as you're doing things with them. So you have to be prepared for that.
You're going to have more than one embroidery thread. You're going to have color, at least colors for every project that you need to do.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm like you. I like gadgets and the whole bit. But, yeah, there's a bit of a learning curve on doing embroidery. It is fun. If you're creative and if you have any artistic ability or whatever, if you're interested in doing your own designs, there's another expense. You need to invest then into a designer program like Artistic Digitaltizer by Janome or Hatch by, what do they call, Wiltcom?
Yeah, and these programs are very expensive.
Very expensive. The Artistic Digitaltizer was $1,000.
It's $1,000, and I think the Wilcom Hatch one runs about $1,500, $1,600. So these are expensive programs, and there's a fairly big learning curve.
Yeah, a very steep learning curve.
Now, you don't have to buy one of those things. You can buy embroidery designs online and download them, but they can be cheap. They can be a few dollars, up to $50 or even more.
Yeah,
depending on how complicated it is. So. Yeah, it's not just buying the machine and you think you can just embroider. Yeah. You have to buy accessories with it, supplies.
Like when I bought my machine, I didn't know about stabilizers. I didn't know and I didn't know how much stabilizers were going to cost. I took 3 classes, like 3 courses, with several classes in each at Ultimate Sewing, and I learned about all that stuff. But Floriani was the products that she sold in the store, and their stabilizers they're good.
But they were quite expensive.
But they're way overpriced. And then, I've done an idiot quilter about this, Monfil in Quebec. That's where we buy all our stabilizers now. 1/3 of the price went from Floriani, and you can get it in fairly large rolls because you'll go through a lot of stabilizers. And it's not just one type of stabilizer. That's the other thing.
Yeah, you have cutaway, tearaway, water soluble,
no-show mesh,
topping type.
Yeah, cloud. Yeah, so it depends on what you're doing, which stabilizer you use. So yeah, there's another part you have to learn too.
Is what stabilizer you use with what product and stuff like that.
And then there's all kinds of different brands of threads. I use Floriani. Walter uses Superb.
From Monfil. Actually, I like using it. It's cheaper than the Floriani.
We bought some Bro thread one time, which is...
I didn't really care for the Bro thread.
No. And there's Isocore, and there's Exquisite.
And there's, Exquisite and Super B is the
we think are the same thing, but...
then there's... what do you call it? What's the other one? Madeira?
Yeah, Madeira. Yeah. Yes, Anne. Embroidery is a whole deal. I mean, it is. Well, think about if you're a quilter when you first got into quilting and all the things that you bought when you first got into quilting and what you're probably still buying. Well, that's what embroidering is like as well. There's all kinds of stuff to do.
There's all kinds of stuff that you have to buy with it.
And there is a learning curve. And one thing I do like about embroidery, because of that learning curve, because you're always learning something new. I mean, you're not just doing embroidery either. You do all these things called in the hoop projects and applique and things like that. So there is a much wider world in the embroidery with the embroidery machine than just, pretty stitches filling in a pattern. You can do all kinds of things. Like I've been showing my Haunted Village wall hanging that I'm doing. It's an in the hoop project. It's a combination of embroidery and applique. And I find that very interesting. You can make a small tote bag with your embroidery machine. You can make pouches. There's all kinds of other things you can make in an embroidery machine.
Just as well I run out of space or money first.
It
depends on what you do. Like, I mean, we went kind of hog wild and we bought, we have pretty much every color of Floriani thread you can get.
Yeah.
And each spool costs $6.99 and there's over 300 spools, so you do the math.
Yeah.
And and like they're all different. You don't need to buy that many. You just need to buy whatever you need for your project. But very often you need 20 different color changes in a design that you're doing. So that means you need 20 different colors of threads at $6.99.
You need special needles. Well, special. Yeah. You need to buy embroidery needles.
Yeah, okay, for the regular sewing needles, but you need that when you do sewing.
Yeah,
anyways,
too.
So. I mean, they're not really. They're maybe a little bit pricier than regular sewing needles. I think I pay about $8.
If you buy Floriani Chrome, they're about $8.99, I think, for 5 needles or something like that. I mean, they're not really any more expensive than regular sewing machine needles in that sense. But the other thing too, some people think once you've got those needles, you have them for life. No, you do not.
You go through needles pretty quick on an embroidery project.
Yeah. I just read something the other day. Someone was asking on an embroidery site, I think it was Dime's site, how often should they change their embroidery needle? And somebody said the general rule of thumb is after 5 hours of embroidery. For 5 hours of embroidery, change a needle. Unless you're using titanium needles, which I've yet to try. I've got some, but I haven't tried them yet. And they say those ones last about 3 times longer. But what happens is it's not your needle will break, it becomes dull. Because it's what they call a sharp, and it's going through all these layers, and sometimes you have layers of embroidery on top of layers of embroidery.
Well, not only that, if you have, let's say, a very intense embroidery pattern that has a lot of stitches in it, the more stitches you have, the more layers of stabilizer that you have to have underneath it to stabilize it. And so you won't necessarily use 1 layer of stabilizer. You may have to use 5 or 6 layers of stabilizer.
So yeah, you're investing in something here that you will keep investing in. And some people say, oh, I can get away with 10, 12, 15 colors. No, you can't. You're going to find that you're going to want more colors, because really the beauty in the embroidery comes from the shading. And that's how these programs are set up. So you might have 3 different blues in one section of a little embroidery piece. And you go, well, they're all blue. And they might look like they're very close in the same shade of blue. But it's that subtle difference.
Bonnie's saying she's running out of space and money.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's easy to do.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, we're not been there. We're still there in doing it. But I enjoy it. And what's the price you put? What price can you put on your happiness? If it brings you joy, as what's her name, Calamari says, or Corey Murray, you know the one. If you don't love it, throw it out, kind of a thing. If it doesn't bring you joy, then don't do it.
Actually, I wasn't sure about buying the embroidery machine, but actually I've started doing more and more with it.
Yeah, I talked him into it. Serves him right. He's usually the enabler. Oh, did you see this? Oh, no, I didn't. Now I have to have it. So anyways, we've certainly got, this wasn't going to be today's talk. This is more something we talk about on the Idiot Quilter. But what I did want to talk just about today, because I was thinking about it in conjunction with my mother's 80th birthday and everything, is I called this session Old Lives Matter. Gotta be careful how I say that. Guy could get into trouble, you know. And I just wondered if anybody has been subject to what we now call ageism. And, you know, we hear all about discrimination and prejudice and bias and all that kind of thing with minority groups and whatnot in our society. And I think a lot of times people forget that discrimination exists for people in our age bracket. When I say our age bracket, I mean the 60-plus crowd. A lot of people, and when I say a lot of people, I mean younger people. And when I say younger people, I mean anywhere between the age of 2 up to the age of about 55, up to about the age of 50. Look at people 60 and over as if, well, you're just waiting, you've got one foot in the grave already, right? You're just waiting to die. And I resent that. I really do. Now, is growing old a thrill? Depends on how you grow old. If your health is decent, then that's probably 3/4 of the weight off your shoulders. And I am lucky. My health is okay. And so is Walter. Well, you know, you wake up in the morning and you kind of ache sometimes, but it doesn't keep me in bed all day. Yeah, maybe I don't move as fast as I did when I was younger, but I'm still moving, and that's all that's important. And I just resent the fact that people think because you're old, you're stupid. Now, of course, having said that, I'm thinking of my mother when it comes to her using her telephone. But
well, some old people are stupid that way.
Now, my mother's old. She's old in her mind. Yeah. And that's the problem I have with my mother more than anything else.
Because we know of other 80-year-olds
and 90-year-olds
and older that I'm amazed at how young they are in their minds. Like they just, and then you see Steve's mother, and she's like
I always said,
before her time.
My mother's 80 going on 110.
And the thing is I can understand it from people that have dementia. Their thought processes aren't the same, and it's difficult at that point in time. But if someone doesn't have dementia, like his mother, then, and it's sad to see her deteriorate that way.
And I can understand people who have bad health, you know, who, you know, they've got a lot of physical problems with that, how that must age them as well. We got a bug in here, probably a peach bug. I get that to a point, but then I also know people who have health problems and they have this mindset that they're not going to let those problems hold them back. They're going to do as much as they possibly can. And it is very easy, I think, when you get to a certain age to turn around and say, oh, your first reaction might be like throwing a dinner party. And my attitude right now is, yeah, I'd love to, when it was in good times, of course. But I think, oh, it's so much work. Do it anyways, because you're going to enjoy it. You're going to have a good time. But it's so easy to talk yourself out of doing things just because you're a little bit older. And I think also talking about age, they say that age is a state of mind. It is and it isn't. If your health is okay, but you already feel like you're an old person, I think that is a psychological thing. Some people refuse to learn new things too. They think, I'm too old for that. It's too easy to say, okay, I'm standing at a self-serve kiosk. I've never used one of these before. What do? I don't want to look like a dummy, but at the same time, oh, I'll never get that, these newfangled devices. No. There's a learning curve to everything. but you have to sometimes push yourself with that. So, what am I saying about ageism on this? Well, there are a lot of young people who have this thing that, and they forget that they will someday, if they're lucky, grow old. But sometimes we do it to ourselves too. Sometimes we're ageist to ourselves. You know, we will talk ourselves out of trying something. Now, I'm not saying jump out of an airplane with a parachute. I wanted to do that once. But now I'm not doing it because
I'm afraid to break my leg.
well, you know, it's just a short drop to a hip replacement. So, you know, don't want to do that. I mean,
yeah, people do that still, jump out of an airplane, but I'm at that stage where I'm beyond wanting to do that.
well, there are certain things in life, I think, where, you know, is it worth the risk?
Yeah.
You know, like bungee jumping. Always thought I might want to do that, but now, no, I don't think so.
I don't.
I think the closest we came to doing something like that was when we went to San Juan, and we did the zip lining.
Yeah. That was a big thing for me because I have fear of heights.
I mean, this zip lining thing was huge.
We zip lined over 100 feet off the ground. So. Actually, it was over 600 feet off the ground.
And there were several of them. It wasn't
luckily
like
you were moving fast enough that by the time I realized how we were on the other side. So.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, actually, I
really
admit,
like that.
considering I'm scared of heights, it wasn't as difficult as I thought it would be.
No, let's see, what are people saying here? Bonnie says, I'm spending my money, not leaving it for someone else to spend when I'm gone. Yeah, that's the way I look at it. Dana says, yes, discrimination is certainly there for us oldsters. And then Ann says, yes, I think COVID has really brought out that discrimination. Yeah. It's the old person's disease. You're going to die if you get it because you're old. No, young people are getting it, and young people, maybe not as many of them are dying or are as close to it because their immune systems are probably better, or should be. But nevertheless, they're not immune to it. So, yeah, getting a job in your 60s, very difficult, unless I want to work at Walmart. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you end up with a boss that's younger than you, and they treat you like dirt. Like you don't know anything.
Yeah. Ann says, I will not zip line. You're brave. Well, we've done it once. I don't know if we're doing it again.
Actually, somebody told me, I never even thought about doing zip lining. We went to Puerto Rico. And somebody said, well, somebody that went to Puerto Rico every year said, you really should try this zip line thing. They call it the Beast or something, and it's like that's really the highest zip line in USA or something like that, right? So at first I said, no way, I'm not doing that. Anyway, so he sort of thought, well, it might be kind of fun. So I had to book in advance. It wasn't cheap either.
No, it wasn't cheap.
And so I booked it, and I said, well, I'll see what I'll do when I get there. Well, first couple of times I went on it, I thought, oh, it wasn't as high as the highest one. And I thought, at first I got on it, and I was really apprehensive. But after I did it a couple of times, I thought, that's no big deal. Do it. Or actually, I'd do it again. I don't know if I'd run out and do it again, but I mean, if there was an opportunity somewhere to do it, and you felt like it, I might do it.
It was definitely okay. I have a feeling, though, the people that were the young people that were helping us get into the harness and everything, they probably, here come a couple of old farts trying to do this.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, right. Yeah, watch me, kid. I have insurance.
Well, we ran into the problem when we were working at the Robert McLaughlin Gallery.
Oh,
and they
yes.
hired a younger guy. And Steve was going to do bartending one night at this event. And the younger guy said, oh, no, you won't be able to handle it.
Yeah, I think you'll get overwhelmed with the number of people.
He used to teach like 90 kids in a day or whatever. Like
I've handled bigger crowds than that. I said, and I should have said to him, wait, I am very experienced when it comes to alcohol. You're what, 29? I'm, at that point, almost 60. I've got 40 years of drinking over you. So, he was definitely an ageist. You know, he's one of those.
Also one of those metrosexual ones.
Yeah,
the skinny guy with the
little top knot thing. You know, no socks on, the pants up there. Ooh, showing my age now. criticizing what the young people are wearing these days. Ann says, have you had anyone say, okay, boomer? Not
No, I haven't heard
really,
that.
no.
I don't think they say that here.
No, I haven't heard that one, but at least not to my face. Marilyn says, I'm going to basically be laid off due to my age. I have been with company 20 plus years and they are what's a riffing? 500 people by the end of the year, and now I'm going to be targeted as...
Firing.
Oh, firing, okay. 500 people by the end of the year, and I know I'm going to be targeted as 67 years old. Yeah, like...
Well, it depends on where you live. It's
Yeah.
discrimination in Canada.
Yeah.
They can't lay you off because of age.
They can't do that to you here in this country. But, you know, they don't take into consideration that somebody that's up to this, you know, you've worked for this company for 20 years, you're 67 years old.
Well, reduction in force.
Oh, is that what that means?
Yeah, really.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm old. I don't get the new acronyms.
Well, I've never heard of that acronym before.
No. But,
We call it downsizing.
yeah, okay, you just keep cutting right in
Yeah,
on me
yeah,
as I
well,
go along. You do this all the time. Now I have no
about
idea what
time.
the point was.
And I haven't even been drinking.
Well, you don't have to be drinking to do it. You do it all the time. Sometimes, Andy says, companies fire older people who have been with the company for a long time because of the cost of the benefits. Well, yeah, that's probably it too. But, you know, these youngsters that come in, they don't have the experience, but they know everything, don't they? I guess that makes me sound old, saying, these young people today. I don't know. Yeah, well, I always think of that scene in that movie, Fried Green Tomatoes, and Kathy Bates is pulling her car into a parking spot, and this young guy, or young girl, I think it's a girl, zips right into the spot, and Kathy looks at her like she was signaling to go into that spot and everything, and this young person just gives her the finger, and you're like, what do you know, old lady, or something like that. So she takes her car, Kathy Bates does, and smashes it into the other car back and forth, and says, I may be old, but I have insurance. And I always think that's pretty good. And you have a higher salary, yeah.
Yeah, well, technically they're not supposed to do that in Canada, but companies do find a way around that. And to get rid of people.
But you know, there was a day and an age when someone turned 60, 65, they were old. But, you know, medical science has gotten to the stage it is, although they can't find a cure for COVID, and everything. People are living longer, and they're living a better quality of life than, say, in my grandparents' day. So, you know, as long as you're still breathing, and I think that the secret to a lot of it is to keep moving. Two things you got to keep moving in your life. You have to move your body, and you have to move your mind. And out of the two of them, I think moving your mind is the one that's slightly more important. Because too many, like my mother, oh, well, I don't know what that's about.
Yeah, like you can't figure out how to operate her phone. And it's part of it's laziness. She doesn't want to learn.
She doesn't want to learn. Well, my father had a computer. My father got a computer just basically before he retired. And he didn't know a lot about it, but he tried. He played around with it. I think he could play some games on it, and he could type on it, and a few things like that. He could check the obituaries on the internet.
That was his home page.
That was his home page. Kind of sad there, right? And my father at that point, well, he was only in his late 60s, early 70s when he was doing that. My mother would not refused to learn how to use a computer. Oh, I don't want to learn how to use that. I have no need for that. Well, yeah, you do have a need for it, Mom. And actually, if my mother had learned that stuff, she could have an iPad right now, and we'd be able to FaceTime.
Yeah.
For this. But we did get her an iPad, My sister got her one.
But she refused to learn it.
When she first moved into her apartment, she refused to learn to use it. And then it always sat in the battery wore down.
Yeah, like, I mean, all she had on it was the weather on front when she opened it. And even then she would stop. She checked it a few times and then she wouldn't go any further. And people tried to show her several apps on, most people know how to use an iPad or pad these days. Tried to show her how to use some apps on it, and she didn't want to look at it.
That's not my cup of tea,
right,
she'd
exactly.
say.
So the problem with that is if you don't learn how to use an iPad, then you can't use a cell phone anymore because all the cell phones are like iPads.
Yeah, she had a cell phone. She didn't know how to use it. She had an internet connection. When she first went into the apartment, I set it up with an internet connection as well, hoping that when she got the iPad, we could show her how to at least do email. Nope, not at all.
I have a friend that had a mother, and
Hi, Billy.
She embraced technology. She was emailing until she was 90 years old, Michael.
Yeah.
Right? So until she got dementia, and then she couldn't really do it anymore.
My mother's best friends are 10 years older than she is, and they've always been using a computer for a long time. And they have a daughter who lives in California, who went there. She got married to no, they're both Canadians, but for work, they moved to San Francisco area. And they've lived there for years now, and their chief way of communicating with their child out there was through Skype. And they use a computer all the time for that. Now, whether they're still using the computer like they did right now, I'm not absolutely sure, but that's a relatively recent development. But they're almost 90 too. But there's lots of 90-year-olds out there that are using the technology. You know, my mother, no, not my cup of tea.
Yeah, so now what she has is she's got a TV set with a menu system on it. She can't figure out how to use the menu system, so she has it always on one station.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't know how to change channel. So, and she doesn't want to learn either.
Yeah, and she doesn't want to learn. That's the thing. And my mother's not a stupid woman.
Like when you talk to her, she talks normal and reasonable and stuff, but she will not learn how to use TV sets.
And
that's her main way of watching TV.
And that's the attitude I'm talking about. If you give up, if you turn around and say, I don't want to learn this, you are going to get left behind. It doesn't mean you have to learn everything. Like, for example, I do not use emoticons when I write messages, occasionally the happy face every now and then.
I very rarely use them.
I actually refuse to use them. I know how to use them. I refuse to talk in that language. Why? I'll tell you why. I'm an English teacher, for God's sakes. Pictures, we're not going back to ancient Egypt here with hieroglyphics and stuff. People use pictures because they're too damn lazy to type full words and full sentences. So they use eggplant, monkey grinning, poopy thing. I don't know. Yeah, that to me is not communicating.
Anne's asking if your mom reads anything.
Well, she used to, but she doesn't anymore. In fact, I had thought about getting her an e-reader. I love my e-reader. I've had one for years now. That's my chief.
But she won't use it.
But she would not. Well, I don't know about that.
Well, I think the problem she has right now is she's lost a lot of strength in her arms, and I think a book's too heavy for her.
Yeah. But you see, if she had an iPad and if she'd use it, you could mount it on the side of the wheelchair so she doesn't even have to hang on to it.
She could even watch TV on it.
Yeah, but no. But that's an attitude. That isn't because she can't. That's because she doesn't want to. And one thing leads to another. I don't want to learn how to change the channels on my TV. I don't want to learn how to use an iPad. I don't want to learn how to push my wheelchair. I do not want to take myself to a bathroom. Okay? Downhill, 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 downhill. And none of it is because she has poor health.
She says she might like audiobooks. Yeah, but how is she gonna listen to it?
Headphones. I got her a set of headphones when we got her the TV set for her room because, you know, she was sharing a room. So she wouldn't be bothering anybody. I walked in one day. She's wearing the headphones upside down on her cheeks. I looked at her and the TV's up full blast but going through the headphones. I mean, I had no problem hearing it through the headphones. And I said to her, Mom, your ears aren't there. They're up here. They're up here. Oh, well, I don't like that because they don't stay on my head. I bought her how many different types of earphones?
Yeah, I know. Then she saw somebody else wearing earbuds.
Oh.
And I said, you're not going to like earbuds. So she got
earbuds.
Well, they lasted like a day.
If that.
She didn't like them.
No.
Because what she does is she sees what somebody else has, and then she wants it.
Yeah.
So you get it for her, and she doesn't use it. Because she decides that, and then she's terrible. She watches TV. Anything she sees on TV, she wants.
Yeah.
Commercial nut. She's a commercial nut.
Well, if it's a cosmetic product.
Anyway, the one good thing about her not using an iPad is she's never learned how to online shop.
No, that's true. That's one advantage of that. But no, you can't. So, you know, so there she is. She's sitting in a wheelchair watching television all day long while life passes her
Like
by.
the audiobook would be a good idea, but she won't be able to. She can't change channels on her TV set. There's no way she's going to figure out how to use an audiobook.
Yeah.
And she even has trouble using the phone.
So, as far as reading, she used to be a real big reader. She was always had her nose in a book. Always. That's why I ended up being an English teacher. That's why I love to read. I learned that from my mother. And what's ironic is she doesn't read anymore for all the reasons we just stated.
Like, I still think that she's got some sort of dementia. But...
Well, she's probably got what they call institutionalized dementia.
Yeah, well, she's got dementia. She's got, what do you call it? If there's a dementia that you don't want to do anything.
Yeah, she just doesn't. So, but you know, get away from my mother for a second and look at it, the broader state of things. I find it surprising that on my last birthday last month, I turned 63. How did that happen? Do I feel 63? No, I don't. I feel 23. Except when I want to try something a 23-year-old will do, and maybe my body won't cooperate as much with it. But what I'm saying is, I don't feel old. And sometimes, you know, you walk by a mirror and you go, whoa, maybe I am old. But nevertheless, I'm still going to make the best of whatever time I've got left on the face of this planet. And I look at everything that I do, and especially when I do my art, when I'm doing crafts and stuff, quilting, paperwork, whatever, embroidery, all of those things challenge your brain. They challenge your brain on a creative level, and I think it's key to keep that going. Try new things. What's the worst thing that can happen? You try a new thing, you don't like it. Well, okay, I tried it. You don't turn around and just say, well, no, I'm not going to try that because I probably wouldn't like it. How do you know? Until you try it. You know, push yourself a little bit. Do things. Take courses. That's why I like taking classes in quilting. Most of those classes, well, I always learn something from them, but I take those classes, well, actually because of that. Because I don't know everything, believe it or not, I don't, about quilting and that, and it extends and it gets my imagination going too. It inspires me to, you know, what if I do this? And I do crazy experiments all the time, which usually get me into trouble with things. Oh, what, you're not supposed to mix those two things together? Well, nobody told me. Let's see what happens. What? Ammonia and bleach? What? No big deal. Well, I don't do that because I know it is a big deal. But, you know, that's what I mean. I think that's what really keeps people young. And it's certainly not the products that keep trying to sell us. You know, my mother looks at those. Oh, they've got this new cream that's supposed to rejuvenate you. Or, yeah, Mom, no, that's snake oil. It really doesn't. But whatever. It's a state of this. It's not a state of this. Okay. Let's see. What are people saying here? Billy says, I love gadgets. My son that lives at home is a computer tech. He's the same way. New toys, 3D printer. I want one. I want a 3D printer too. And why do I need a 3D printer? No. Do I? So why do I want one? Because it's a toy. I want it. I want it. There's a girl that lives up the street from me that has a YouTube channel. And she's in her 20s and she's self-taught on 3D printers and everything, and she makes marvelous things in it. Well, she's an artist, kind of a thing. I want a 3D printer. And I will have one soon. Anne was an English teacher too. Andy says, my way of keeping young at heart, I bought a boxer puppy when I was 65, want to talk about keeping young. Do you know there are some places I have heard, not experienced it myself, firsthand, but I've heard that when you go into a shelter or something, or a humane society, and to rescue a pet, to adopt a pet, they make you fill out forms, of course, and when they see your age, depending on your age, they will try to talk you out of, if not right out. I've heard them tell people they can't have one because of your age. If you're 70 years old and you go in to adopt a puppy, they don't want you to have it. And the reason they don't want you to have it is because they figure you'll die before the puppy, before the dog goes. And then who's going to look after the dog? Well, yeah, in some ways I see the logic in that, but in other ways that's still discrimination.
I can see it if you're buying a parrot.
Well, yeah, well, parrots like live 80 years, like, yeah. But, yeah, Nancy, young and old are afraid of technology, but the young people think that we know nothing about technology. When I was teaching school, these kids thought they'd pull the wool over my eyes by doing this and that, and half the time I had to show them how to do whatever they needed to do on the computer system, because all they were interested in was going on the internet, reading email, sending messages, and texting on their phones. In fact, they got away from even using a computer. They do it all on their phone now. That's everything for them. That's their computer. My father jumped in. My mother was afraid. Okay. Socializing is important. So yes, our sewing, quilting, or whatever group is good for us. Yes, socializing is important. And that's why I bought from a breeder. My neighbor loves my dog and said he would take her when something happens to me. It's all good. Yeah, well, why should you not give an animal a good home?
Not only that, animals can actually provide a lot of companionship.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I have to say that in the back of my head, I keep thinking, maybe we should get a cat again. I kind of miss having a little furry thing around the house besides Walter. And he's not so little. But then again, I go, no, I don't know if I can go through all of that again at the end. You know, that was the hardest thing I ever had to do in my life, was when Kitty had to be put down, kind of a thing. And I just always think of that and go, ooh, I don't know if I can go through that anymore. And we still like to travel, although we may never be able to again. But, you know, so I don't know. But every time I watch the cat videos on YouTube, and I watch a lot of them, I go, oh, look at the babies. They're babies. I love the babies. Not human babies. I could care less about them. So anyways, yeah, this whole thing with ageism, it just got me thinking about it with the way my mother is right now at 80. I was surprised she didn't turn around and say, well, you know, if I live another year, oh, that's going to come, because her mother used to say that. So, I don't know. Billy says, your mom sounds like my husband. He is an invalid now. He is 73, but I'm his full-time caregiver. If it weren't for my sewing computer, I would go crazy. That's rough, Billy, when you have that. You know, that anything that'll make you feel old is when you have to be a caregiver for somebody else because they can't look after themselves. And I feel for you on that one. That was how I felt when my father was still alive and before he went into the nursing home. And he didn't last long in the nursing home because he was pretty much bedridden. And my mother, she was the chief caregiver and she just couldn't do it anymore. at that point. And my dad wasn't that old. My dad was, when he passed away, he was 75. So, you know, like, I'm 63. Yeah, 70 hits a lot faster than what you think. But we have a friend who, he's a gay man. He's, how old is he now? 75?
Who?
Chris.
Yeah, I think he's 75 or 76, yeah.
He's out on the golf course all the time. He goes all the time.
Before COVID hit, he was flying all over the place.
Yeah. You would
And
never
stuff
know
like
he
that.
was like 75.
Like, to see him, I never realized he was that old. So.
No, never. We didn't know how old he was. We didn't realize he was.
But he's like all over the place, and he learns new stuff. He's on the computer. He's doing stuff
All the
He's
time.
a little bit stunned at.
Well, yeah, but you know, that has nothing to do with his age. That's just him. But but I mean, he's a real inspiration in many ways. I think because you know, you would never know that this man was 75 years old.
Yeah.
But of course, that's a stereotype, isn't it? To that, even saying that, you'd never know he's 75 years old. What's a 75-year-old supposed to be like? So, you know, I should hope that in 10 years' time I'll be still that lively.
We've got neighbors that are in their 70s, and Rick, you can't. I think he's 72. You can't tell. You wouldn't.
No,
tell
you would
that
never know he was 70. I didn't think he would. They were
Yeah.
that much older than us. Well, they're not that much older than us, but I mean, like.
I think he's 72. I'm not 100% sure, but.
But yeah, so you know, there is life after 60. Old lives matter, for sure. Therese says, I love learning new things, but drive my son crazy when I don't remember every step of doing anything for the computer, TV side. Just say that's why I have him. Or post-it notes. Little notes to yourself do not hurt. There's nothing wrong with writing lists. I'm a great list maker. And yes, I do forget things a little bit. You know, and I think everybody goes through this. You know, you walk into a room to get something and you forgot why you walked into the room and what it was you were going to get. What's worse is when you walk down the hall and the other person you live with is walking up the other end, you both stop and go, where are you going? I don't know. There was something I was going to get. Where are you going? I don't know. I needed something. Do you remember? No, I don't know. And you go, well, whatever, couldn't have been that important, and move on. My neighbor gardens every day. She's 103. Wow. I'm 71 and can I can't garden because of my back, so just don't know. Well, yeah, there are certain conditions, you know, we can't do much about.
You end up avoiding doing certain things.
Yeah. But then that's why there are children.
Mm-hmm.
You hire them to do those things. Yeah. Another thing, be around young people. I have friends who are young enough to be my grandchildren. Yeah, no. Don't like them. Young people? Well, it depends. And it depends on what you mean by young. Someone in their 40s? Yeah, that's a young person these days. Those ones I can probably tolerate, but much younger than under 40. I just find them very whiny and, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I am getting old. Now I'm becoming a crotchety old man. But whatever. So, that's our time. Okay, we've gone over time. They're in their 20s. Oh my God, I've got underwear older than that. And I'm probably wearing it if I remember to put it on. Okay, there was a joke in there somewhere. All right, guys, we're going to say bye-bye. And we'll be on next week as usual. My vlog comes out tomorrow. There will be an episode of Idiot Quilter up probably later today. I was showing, actually, we were talking about embroidery. Someone had requested that I do an Idiot Quilter showing how I embroider the current project I'm working on. So I did a fast forward kind of video of that. So if you're interested, that should be up probably about now. So we'll see everybody next week, and yeah, have a good week.
Yep.
Stay young at heart. Don't get COVID. Stay in, be healthy, all that kind of stuff. And we'll see you next week. Say goodbye, Walter.
Goodbye, Walter.